This is the Nostalgic Future Podcast, where the past is the only way forward.
We're two guys in our 40s watching the world pass us by. And we know the only way we'll ever be relevant again is to somehow convince everyone to be as passionate as we are about our pop culture obsessions.
We are your hosts, Joe Cook and Chris Marchand, and today is our Thanksgiving Halloween episode.
Welcome back to the Nostalgic Future Podcast. My name is Chris Marchand. I'm here with Joe Cook. And although our timing isn't exactly perfect here, this is something that we want to do as the years go on, which is to offer an annual Halloween episode. And here's the premise. Here's the premise of our Halloween episodes. Joe and I, we're not exactly allowed. I mean, I would say pretty defiantly not allowed to watch horror films growing up. And I'll say for myself, Joe, I'm not really into horror movies. I will watch them. They can be fun. They can be interesting. But the fun part about this is as a pop culture nostalgia podcast, is to look at this through the eyes of my parents in the 80s and 90s, and to think of myself as a little kid. And so we're excited. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the part of the fun of this is doing something that our parents don't want us to do.
I know. Well, the thing is, Joe, I'm a little afraid to tell my mom what I've done. I mean, is she going to be mad at me? Is she going to be disappointed?
We did this for the first time a couple years ago. We watched A Nightmare on Elm Street. Neither of us had ever seen it. And I think I mentioned this on that episode, but it's the truth. I told my mom that I watched that for the podcast, and she literally gasped.
Shrieked.
She was horrified.
Go to your room, Joseph. So this is a funny one because I think we're going to have a fun conversation about today's film, because it's kind of like we're wondering what the big deal was. It's Child's Play from 1988, the first Chucky movie.
Child's Play, a terrifying new movie. Something has moved in with the Buckley family. And so has terror. Child's Play. Child's Play. Rated R.
Starts Wednesday, November 9th at a theater near you.
Now, had you ever seen any Chucky movie or anything, Chris?
Nothing other than whatever clips would come my way on a random cable show. He was like with Freddy and Jason and, Texas Chainsaw and Mike Myers. The icon of the image of Chucky was there.
You mean Michael Myers? I was thinking.
What did I say?
I was thinking of the coffee talk lady.
Yeah, Michael Myers. Yeah, Michael Myers. With the William Shatner, William Shatner mask. Chucky is one of the icons. But other than just like a few little clips of him laughing and saying something really, really horrible and disrespectful and violent, I don't know. I knew nothing.
Same. I have never seen a Chucky movie until this past week. I do want to say real quick though, before we get too into this, you are right. As we're taping this, we are a little late to the party, but I want to mention something. Last year in October, I remember our family, we were watching on Disney Plus. They had like a new version of the show Goosebumps.
Okay.
And we were watching that all kind of like Halloween season last year. And this year there was no new season. I found out season 2 is going to be coming out for some reason in January. So all that to say, I think we're doing okay.
We're doing okay here. Okay, that's good to know. Hey, people watch Christmas movies whenever they want. Why can't we watch a Halloween movie whenever we want?
Exactly.
Yeah. So this will be fun. Child's Play came out in 1988. It's directed. My kids noticed it right away. It's directed by Tom Holland, and they were like, "Tom Holland?" I was like, "Not that Tom Holland."
Okay, I did that when I was watching it with Joey. I literally had the same reaction your kids. I went, "Tom Holland."
Yeah, right. There you go. And I think what's interesting is what we should ask, right? So Child's Play. There's two questions to ask. Main ones, which is, okay, was this a truly horrible, bad movie that our parents never should have let us watch? And what do we think? Is it a good movie? So what do you think on the realm of inappropriateness, Joe? Like should young Joe and young Chris have been sheltered from this film?
Okay. I think that, there's a couple layers to that. I think, okay, so do you know what, the Chucky doll is based on, Chris?
I used to have one. Remind me of the name. I
had it too. My buddy.
My buddy.
So
yeah.
I was reading about this because while watching the movie, I was like, okay, well, this is my buddy. I said, Joe, I had this doll. I said, the doll
Can you
they're
still
making
sing the
fun
song?
of. Oh,
Can you still
my
sing?
buddy,
My buddy. My buddy, wherever he goes, he goes.
My buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy. Wherever I go, he goes. My buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy. I'll teach him everything that I know. My buddy and me like to climb up a tree. My buddy and me, we're the best friends it could be. My buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy and me.
My Buddy from Play School.
Yes.
Then there was Kid Sister.
And Kid Sister. I used to hold my buddy and almost like I would get teary-eyed as a kid. I loved my buddy.
Me too. And so watching the movie, I'm like, okay, this is my buddy. I was like, Joe, I had the doll that they're parodying here. It was very clearly, my buddy. And so I looked it up, and in the original script, the character's name wasn't Chucky, it was Buddy. So, and then they just couldn't use it because, well, my buddy, copyright and all that. So they changed it to Chucky, but it was a fun little parody. Honestly, Chris, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was really fun. It was really dumb, but just like dumb fun. Like I would just equate it to a movie like I've seen in the last couple years. Cocaine Bear, or there's one with David Harbour we watched last Christmas, Violent Night. I don't know if you saw.
I haven't seen it, but he plays a version of Santa Claus.
Where it's just those are just kind of really dumb, violent movies. Chucky is in that realm for me. That is not a scary movie by just about any stretch of the imagination. Maybe when I guess it came out. When did it come out? 88.
88. Yeah.
So I'd have been 7. Maybe at 7, it would have kind of freaked me out a little. But we were much more sensitive back then to, media. We didn't grow up with a really violent video games and things like that. This sort of desensitized. I don't think most kids would be fazed by this movie today. I think it's rated R because I think there maybe are a couple F-bombs in it. I think to me it felt like a PG-13 movie.
A little bit, maybe just a little bit past PG-13. And that was actually the thing I was maybe the most sensitive about when Chucky really comes alive and starts to use abusive language. And that was the most disturbing part. I was like, okay,
if your My Buddy doll started cussing you out and calling you those things, that would have been horrifying.
Well, and there's a friend who is a babysitter of the kid in the movie, and he calls her the B word, and it was. I mean, to me, the violent language cut deeper for me than watching Chucky go on a rampage.
Oh, the violence itself was stupid.
It was stupid. It was
really cheesy
I was just like,
and silly, and we laughed throughout the entire movie. It was really funny.
That was going to be one of my questions, which is, this is a comedy, right?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, of course, not 100% comedy. It's not like the most funny movie in the world, but it's not even a satire or a parody of horror films, but it's just meant to be fun. It's just meant to
But that's the same way I feel about a Cocaine Bear or a Violent Night. Those aren't necessarily in the comedy genre, but they are very funny movies.
Yeah.
Just for how over the top and ridiculous they are. You're laughing at the absurdity, not the jokes.
Yeah. It's not a funny movie. Oh man, this is have you seen Shaun of the Dead? I've
actually never seen it. I know it's got a pretty big cult following.
I love they made 3 of those types of movies, different genres. One is a buddy cop film, one's an alien invasion film. They're some of my favorite comedies. I really, really love them.
Shaun of the Dead is on my like list because I've got my
should-
list of movies that I've got to get to, and that's one of them.
I would prioritize it. It's great.
I will do
It's
that. I
great.
will move it
It's
up a
great.
few notches.
That is a legitimately funny movie, whereas Chucky is just like, this is a comedy, right? It's meant to be funny.
It's stupid fun.
It's stupid fun, and I would say too that there's not really a point to it. Like I was trying to analyze.
There's no depth there.
There's no depth
whatsoever.
Sometimes when there's a horror, there can be a metaphor where you go, oh, I see. They're making some kind of comment, some kind of statement. There is no statement. Let me just be clear on this. But there's some weird, deep stuff, though. Actually, let me get to that in a minute. Before we get, I want to get to some of the content, like how does the movie start out, which is really kind of interesting. But before we get to that, I want to say, Joe, I agree with you. It's a dumb, stupid movie, but it's actually a good movie. And that's what's interesting about it.
It is, but I felt the same way with Nightmare on Elm Street when we watched that a couple years ago. I thought, well, this actually is a good film.
It's a good film.
It
It's a really good
succeeds
film.
at everything it sets out to do.
Exactly. So recently, every now and then, we haven't binge watched them, but we've watched some Mystery Science Theater 3000s. And some of the recent ones where one called Devilfish. Have you ever seen Devilfish? It's like a Jaws ripoff.
Is that from the Netflix era?
No, it's not. It's older than that.
So it's okay. So it's like maybe Sci-Fi Channel or
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I can't remember if I've seen it or not. I used to watch it all the time back in the day. I do still watch that show on occasion. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. But I've not seen every single one of them.
Oh, there's too many, right?
There's a ton.
Well, if you could imagine a Jaws ripoff made in Italy with every all the dialogue is overdubbed, So that's a recent one we watched.
It's a spaghetti Jaws film.
It's a spaghetti Jaws. Yeah, exactly. And then there's one that I can't remember. This one also might be Italian. It's called Pod People.
Oh, I have seen Pod People. Yeah,
Pod People's a pretty well known one. So the reason I'm saying Mystery Science Theater is like, I know what a bad film looks like. I know what incoherent plots and like structures and characters out of nowhere and none of it makes any sense. That is not Chucky. Chucky is like it is really tightly compacted. It's well done. It's just goofy fun. That's what it is, right?
It really is. I mean, now there was a sequence in it. I'm trying to think. There was like I guess there was this kind of witch doctor guy character that and they went to his apartment or whatever. Yes. That was a mildly disturbing scene. I mean,
That's
like
true.
if I would have been 7, that might have disturbed me. That was probably like I felt like just his apartment was very dark, and some of the images that were painted on the wall and everything. I thought, well, okay. I remember watching it, going, okay, well, my mom might not have liked that. Like
that's true.
I kind of got like that was not necessarily intended for children, but that to me felt like one of the most adult parts of the film.
And in terms of a movie being seen as evil, I would argue the voodoo stuff, the witchcrafty stuff, I could see a parent really interpreting that and going, oh, no, you're not going to watch any of that. However, in my middle-aged self, I'm just like going, this is so beyond absurd.
This is a My Buddy doll, like massacring people. Like it is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And I guess I just need to go into, because I had no idea. I didn't even think about it. I mean, I'm so innocent, Joe. It never occurred to me to think, how is Buddy, or sorry, sorry, Hasbro, or whoever made the Buddy doll, I really, truly apologize. How does Chucky become Chucky? It didn't even occur to me to think like the logistics of it. So this is kind of funny because it's a little bit of a superhero tale, isn't it? Right? Like, Spider-Man getting bit by a spider. Well, Chucky has his origin story, and oh my goodness, was it funny to me? We're sitting there. I was watching it with a couple of my kids. We're 2 minutes into a movie, or 3 or whatever, and there's this shootout chase with a criminal going down the street, and and this guy, he's played by the actor Brad Dourif. And as soon as I saw him, I knew who he was because for me, he infamously played the character Wormtongue in the movies, the Lord of the Rings movies. And so this guy as an actor, he has this look, right? He kind of has this intense. He can play evil really well. This guy Brad Dourif, he's been around a long time. Anyway, all of a sudden you have this cop, shootout scene, and then then out of nowhere we're spouting voodoo spells, and this criminal is sending his soul into a buddy doll, and I just thought, you've got to be kidding me! This is how this happens.
It was the good guy doll, right?
The good guy. Sorry, yeah, the good guy doll.
Or good guys. Was it good guy? It was okay. So I'll tell you what's funny about that is I remember like somebody bringing one of the good guys dolls onto Pawn Stars years ago.
Okay,
and it was in the box, and it was a prop from the movie.
Ooh, nice.
And them talking about the fact that there weren't very many of them left because they blew them all up. And then I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize they blew them all up right at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so one of those props, I guess, like they did. They had a stack of them there and they exploded.
That's right. That's a good point. Yeah. Do you remember how much it sold for?
I can't remember, what the guy they called in told him it was worth, I have to say. But I'm sure it's on YouTube if you look for it.
Yeah. So
I do think it was Chumley, though, that he talked to.
Okay. There you go. Not yeah.
That was the Chucky expert,
There you go.
He
kind of looks like an oversized Chucky doll, a little bit like
I'll tell you, there were a couple actors in the movie that stood out to me.
Yeah.
One, the mom was Catherine Hicks, who
yes.
I guess most people would know her from, I guess, the show's Seventh Heaven, but I've never seen that. She was in a movie that I watched as a kid that I taped on VHS off the USA Network, and I watched this movie like 100 times as a kid. And it was kind of a dumb movie, but I loved it. It was with Robert Hayes. It was called Running Against Time. And it was this guy went back in time to stop the Kennedy assassination so that he could stop the Vietnam War from escalating.
Nice.
And it was this kind of convoluted time travel movie.
I lost my brother in Vietnam.
Didn't he say that he was going to pull the troops out of Vietnam?
A time traveler sets out to change history.
You will have exactly 15 minutes before President Kennedy's motorcade drives by.
If he fails, he could be trapped in the past forever. Robert Hayes, Catherine Hicks, Running Against Time. A USA world premiere movie. Wednesday at 9, 8 Central.
I'm looking it up now. It's a TV movie.
It's a TV movie on the USA Network. And I loved that movie as a kid, but she was in that movie. And so every time I see Catherine Hicks, which is not often, but when I do see her pop up, I'm like, oh, from Running Against Time. And then the other guy in the movie was there's an actor named Jack Colvin. He played the doctor. Did you recognize him?
No. The answer is no.
Okay, Jack Colvin was the reporter that was chasing Dr. David Banner on the Incredible Hulk TV show, the old Bill Bixby show. Yeah,
it's been a while since I've seen a Hulk episode. Yeah.
Legend, man. He was a legend. He was the guy that was like, I don't know if you ever thought about it or not, but like the Incredible Hulk TV series was a direct ripoff of The Fugitive. It's the same show, except that it would be if Richard Kimball turned into a green monster. But it's
right.
If you take premise, if you take away the green monster element, they are the same show. And there was in the original Fugitive, it was Philip Gerard. He was Sam Gerard in the movie, the Tommy Lee Jones character. But the guy that was chasing Kimball, that was Jack Colvin. He instead of being a police officer or a U.S. Marshal, he was a reporter that was chasing the Hulk. So he was
very good.
Yeah. So that guy was a legend.
There you go. Well, it's funny that you mentioned him. I will say his death in the psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
That would have been something my mom would not have let me watch.
That was like the shock therapy thing, right?
The shock therapy, and his eyes go all bloody and stuff. But it's funny, my 11-year-old, he was like after the movie, he was like, that was stupid. Nobody dies that way. Like, I'm like, okay, I was kind of scared, you know. But yeah, so it's kind of fun. Like you say, like, what is a kid gonna see nowadays? I mean, I honestly, I'm not down with my whole electroshock death, so I can't tell you one way or not if that was scientifically accurate. I know my mom would not have liked it as a kid, and I'm sitting there watching it, going, oh, "Okay, this is pretty dumb." But hey, you know what? Let's talk about this. I think the practical effects of Chucky, they worked for me. I actually I thought it was pretty nicely done. I was convinced about his movements. And there was hardly anything that I saw that I go, oh, that was stupid. It was actually pretty well done. I don't know how you felt.
One thing I remember pointing out, there were scenes where they showed Chucky running.
Yep, and they had a little person.
Yeah, it was clearly a person in a costume.
Yeah.
But what I remember talking with Joey about while we were watching it is just how impressive those shots were, because the way they used the kind of camera perspectives and everything, it really looked like the doll was running. I didn't look like, oh, look at that dumb, stupid shot of a guy in a costume. Like, it was actually fairly convincing.
Yeah, what? I was actually decently impressed.
I was too. I really thought I tell you what, the more I go back and I've been watching a lot of movies that I never got to back in the day. And and this is certainly one of those, just a movie that I've known about my whole life, I've never seen. And the more I see really well done practical effects, the more I really do miss it, in our modern films. Because there is just something about that it has got such a charm to it, but it's also just more impressive because there's, it wasn't rendered on a screen. Somebody had to, I think that's why, people were so, blown away by, the atomic bomb explosion in Oppenheimer, because he chose to do that with a practical effect, rather than, because they could have knocked that out in an afternoon, on a computer. But the fact that, Nolan actually figured out how to replicate that practically is just, I think, what made that so utterly impressive.
Yeah. I totally agree.
That scene gave me chills, and I think it wouldn't have had I not known prior that it was a practical effect.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And I guess I've kind of been as an armchair moviegoer, I've been pretty good with my kids about harping on like practical effects. Like, I remember when, some of the more recent Star Wars movies, and I would go, okay, so they did that practically. And I would always lift it up. I like the Mission Impossible movies because a lot of it is done practically. A lot of the stunts are. And so I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit, even my own kids, they can spot it when it's just bad CGI, it's fake. And we'd rather just see something real.
We'll sit and watch a TV show, and then somebody inevitably, in the room will go, green screen.
Right. Which I don't necessarily need to get here yet, but we're going to have a brief little discussion on another film called The Thing. And that has some very interesting practical effects.
It does.
I was pretty surprised. I watched it recently for the first time as well. That's not the one we officially watched for this episode.
No, because I watched it like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. So it's not fresh in my memory. But it is the first time I've only seen it once in my life.
Yeah,
and it was relatively recently.
Yeah. I would definitely. Yeah. We'll get into that. We'll get into that in a little bit. Any other aspects of Child's Play that you wanted to discuss?
Gosh, man, I just got to say that, for me, it was just that experience of, okay, why was this so kind of forbidden? And I will say, I mean, in fairness to my mom, I don't think there was ever an official rule in my house that you're not allowed to watch these movies. It was just this sort of thing where I understood that she really did not like them and really felt that they were bad. And so it was just not, and as a kid, I wasn't that curious about them. for whatever reason. Like I remember a few years ago talking to a friend of mine, and I told him, like I had never seen, Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or pretty much any quote unquote slasher film or anything like, and he like didn't believe me. Like I was like, no, really, I haven't. And he's like, well, you're not allowed. I said, I honestly don't think I wasn't allowed. I said, but no, it was not it was not the kind of thing that, my parents would have been down with. But I mean, like, I just didn't. Maybe I was just like too much of a goody two shoes. I don't know. But I don't know. So, but it was always a taboo thing in our house. That for sure. So I've spent a lot of time over, the last few days thinking about that element of it and just going like, why was this was this thing that growing up, as I understood it, was something I was supposed to maybe be fearful of. And now actually having experienced it in a couple of these movies, there really wasn't anything all that scary about it to me. And actually, like, I kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's just my personality, but like, I just thought they were really silly, but also fun. And I can appreciate them for what they did. I do think that Child's Play is a good film. It is a movie that, like, in a couple years from now, if I was in the mood, I would watch that again.
It's an entertaining, I wouldn't say innocent, but it's a downgrade of scariness from other ones. So I would, if there was a decently mixed group of people and we wanted to watch something horror but not too bad, I would put this in the realm of things. It's like, this is not too awful.
I think there are like psychological thrillers that are scarier than Child's Play. Much scarier.
When the other night when we watched it with my eldest son. We watched The Thing. That's what we watched. And we kind of settled on that. One of the films my wife said was, what about Silence of the Lambs? And I was like, whoa, Silence of the Lambs? Are you sure you're in the mood for that? Because that's disturbing.
Yeah.
And that's a movie to me that I'm like, I don't know if I'm in the mood for that right now.
Okay. When I was 15 years old, a friend let me borrow a VHS copy of Seven.
Yeah, Seven is one of those movies I'm like, nah, I'm not going there tonight.
I watched it absolutely horrified.
It's a hard movie.
And then I remember this clearly. My cousin bought it, like, he had we were on a trip together a couple years later. We were still teenagers. And he had a DVD or actually maybe we were a little older, because if it was a DVD, it might have been in the early 2000s. But I remember we were on a trip together, and he had a DVD player, and he had his book of DVDs, and Seven was in there, and we were like, hey, let's watch Seven. And I remember this clearly, that my cousin and I, putting the DVD in, kind of getting quiet for like a minute and going like, and I just kind of said, you want to watch something else? He goes, yeah, I think so. And like neither of us could really psych ourselves up to watch it again. I've still never seen it again. I've seen that movie one time when I was 15. I think I'm good.
Yeah. There's movies like that. Chucky's not that way.
Yeah, Chucky is not Seven.
It's just a good, dumb, fun movie. Now, here's what I would say, though. Like yourself, there wasn't exactly a rule about this type of movie. But you know what there also weren't rules of in my family? There was no rule. Like, if I found a bee's hive, there wasn't a rule to not bring the bee's hive in the house. But I kind of just knew you don't bring a beehive into the house if you find one.
Fair enough.
And like, to my mom, that's what a horror film would have been like. It's like, what are you bringing into my home? It was almost like, I think most horror films for my mom was associated with some kind of spiritual, dark, demonic presence.
Yeah, and I think the same. I think the same in my family as well.
And I could see her, and especially once those voodoo scenes start playing out, I could see her going, "Oh, no! What are you doing? You're opening yourself up to this kind of thing. Get this out. Purge my house," like the lady in Poltergeist.
I think there's something to that, because when I was a kid, I certainly watched movies that my mom would not have approved of. I mean, I had a TV in my room, and I could, flip channels and watch whatever was on. And I certainly watched movies or shows that would have not been her cup of tea. But I never really ventured into the horror genre all that deeply. I never really took an interest or rebelled into slasher films. And a lot of the kids I know knew at the time, they were watching them. I knew a lot of kids who used to talk about Chucky and Freddy and Jason and all that growing up. And to me, it was a foreign language. It just always was.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't in the cards. I'll put it to you that way. But I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit different than you. We eventually got some form of basic cable, but there just wasn't, like, because I wasn't going to go to Blockbuster or my local video store and say, "Hey, Mom, can we watch Chucky this weekend?" So that wasn't going to happen. I was never going to suggest it. And then there was just not really much of an opportunity. And so then, guess what? All of a sudden, I'm in my 20s and my 30s, and I've just never really been interested in them.
And that happens. And that totally happens, because what happens is when you're when you're a kid and then into your teens, you start developing all of your interests that you'll have for the rest of your life. And horror, and I think it's I remember when we were first conceiving this podcast, we were kind of talking about let's revisit some of the things that we kind of missed out on, but that were they were all around us when we were growing up. And one of the things that we connected, you and I, right away with was that just neither of us had watched any of these slasher films. And so, yeah, that's the other thing about that too, is that I watched Nightmare on Elm Street 2 years ago, and I watched Child's Play a few nights ago. And in between those, I haven't watched any others. It's not like I developed an interest for them, even though I really enjoyed Nightmare on Elm Street. But I haven't watched any of the sequels. I haven't, it didn't just kind of spur this interest in me to go out there and just start devouring all these movies that I there are certain ones that I would like to see eventually, but they're not a priority.
Yeah. When I want to watch a horror movie, I just watch a Martin Scorsese film, because that's about the horrors of how humans treat each other.
The horrors of humanity. Yeah.
Yeah. You're watching Goodfellas and Casino and The Departed. It's this is a horror film. Does everybody realize? And that's my version of that, because it's man, the world is a dark place.
Well, and
I enjoy it. I enjoy those films.
And I'm with you on that. I love The Sopranos. It's, one of my favorite shows of all time. And I think that's much more frightening than a Chucky doll.
Man, I tell you what, there's the scene, the actor Chris Sarandon, he's probably maybe most well known for starring in The Princess Bride as Prince Humperdinck, but there's a scene where Chucky is in the car with him, and I would say that's one of those just fun, dumb scenes that doesn't exactly work, but it's so ridiculous, and eventually the car flips over.
I didn't realize this watching it too. He was the voice of Jack Skellington.
Wait, so who's that?
From Nightmare Before Christmas.
I had no idea. Are you serious?
Yeah,
I had no idea. I would not have been able to tell you that. I know that Catherine O'Hara is in that movie and that the music's by Danny Elfman. But really? I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Have you ever seen that movie?
I have. I'm not a huge fan of it. Do you like it?
I've enjoyed it. I've seen it a couple times in my life. I think it's one we'll probably maybe even watch this year, but I haven't seen it in a few years. It's not I'm not one of those people who it's their movie, right? Because there are people who are obsessed with that movie. I enjoy it. I do enjoy it.
I love animation, and I really appreciate the animation. I find kind of all the characters in the songs annoying, so that's my problem. I think the animation is brilliant, so there you go.
So your beef is with Danny Elfman?
No, not Danny Elfman himself. Sometimes musicals, if I have to it's like a lunar eclipse type of thing where I'm in the right mood for a musical, where and so.
Have you seen Joker 2?
I'll let you know when I do. No, I have not. I've not heard good things. And
Yeah, neither have I.
I don't think I'm going to be in the mood for a
Well,
while.
I think it's going to be on streaming in a couple weeks. So
Yeah, they're going to be paying people to see that in a couple of weeks. So, anyway, I was just laughing at that scene where Chucky's in the back of the car and he's like sticking the knife through the back seat, and then they're going under the
stabbing up the guy's crotch.
yeah, that's right.
That was the most terrifying part of the movie.
There you go. That was horrible. I was like, no. But then the car eventually flips, and Chucky's running around the car taunting him and stuff. Oh man, I just love all this. It's just so schmaltzy, wonderful fun. You know what? You know what I will say?
Yeah,
I want to comment on this. I'm sorry, this is a little bit of local pride here, but the whole movie was filmed in the Chicago area and in Chicago, and I was like, oh, cool. It felt like home for me, because I've spent a lot of time in Chicago, and it was just kind of neat seeing the streets and the feel of the city, and the really cool apartment building that the mom and the son Andy that they live in. Really neat. Like they really utilize this kind of iconic, strange stairwell,
that old elevator. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, really cool. I love it.
Yeah, that was the scene I was thinking of with the little Chucky guy running around.
Yeah,
was on that
right.
stairwell. It was really cool.
It was really cool, and that building was kind of creepy in a sense, in a weird kind of old way, And so I love how they utilize that to kind of set the mood a bit, So Anyway. I just had to mention the whole Chicago element of it, which is neat. And supposedly they filmed most of the scenes in the dead of winter, and people were just like the actors were just freezing most of the time. Apparently that was the case. So,
No, it was great, man. I really enjoyed it. So what do you say we watch another slasher film same time next year?
Yeah, we'll have to see what's on the docket.
I'm thinking Friday the 13th is one we've got to get to.
You know what I would be interested in is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, okay.
I don't. Can we stomach it? Is it really gross? I don't even know. See, this is the thing. I don't even know. Is it bad or is it just dumb?
Not a clue. I couldn't tell you. Saw.
No,
we could do Saw.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Okay. See how weak we are?
We're wimps.
Can't I just watch The Gangs of New York? I mean, like for some reason, like the idea of Saw just sounds so gross.
Well,
to me.
I could tell you how I cleansed myself after watching this violent, vile movie.
Yeah,
as that was our go-to Halloween traditions. Last night, our family we gathered around the TV and we watched Garfield's Halloween Adventure. It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. We watched was it that one? It's an old Donald Duck cartoon, Trick or Treat. It's you can stream it on Disney Plus, and then we capped off the night with Toy Story of Terror.
Wait, what's that one? Is that
have you ever seen Toy Story of Terror?
I don't know.
Oh my!
What is it?
Gosh, man. You have got to go watch this tonight, gather your family around.
Okay.
Toy Story of Terror is a Toy Story Halloween special that aired a decade ago, and it's wonderful. Okay. It is really, really good. It's better than Toy Story 4. And I didn't hate I know a lot of people hate on Toy Story 4. I actually kind of enjoyed it. But Toy Story of Terror is terrific.
Okay.
And one of our favorite Halloween specials of all time. So we watched all those last night.
Is it how do you think a 6-year-old would hold up with Toy Story of Terror?
Toy Story of Terror. How does the 6-year-old have they watched the other Toy Story movies?
Yes.
I would say it's no scarier than the movies.
Okay.
I mean, there are some intense moments, that are, they are in theory, kind of. They're probably more frightening than Chucky, to be honest.
There you go. Okay.
But in that sort of more suspenseful,
intense,
mysterious, I don't know what's happening kind of way. They don't. There's nothing graphic or anything. It's Toy Story, right? But but it's it's pretty comparable to like if okay, Toy Story 3 has sequences that are heavier.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that was great. And then last night, my son and I, we wanted to watch, because every year we watch the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, right? So Joey and I, we stayed up till like 1 a.m. last night watching Treehouse of Horrors, older ones. And I will tell you what we did, which was kind of fun, is a couple years ago, we binge watched every one of them ever made. So it was like, you know, I don't know, 35 or 30, probably 33 or 34 seasons worth of Treehouse of Horrors at that time. And so we watched them all. And then Joey did this kind of cool thing where he kind of reviewed because, you know, the Treehouse of Horror has the 3 different segments in each episode. And he kind of reviewed them all. And I mean, wrote reviews down for all of them. And he ranked, you know, his list from worst to best Treehouse of Horror segments. And last year, we went back and we watched his top 10.
You're talking segments then? Just
the segments, not the whole episodes. Just
you have to locate them. That
you got to jump around, and we did that last year. We watched the top 10 ones.
What are some of his top? Are we talking like the Raven one?
Let me look.
One of his top.
Now I will say, in fairness to Joey, I'm sure he would want me to mention that he would like to go back and revisit these, because we did watch one last night that I think we both seriously reevaluated as not being, well, what I want to say is that what we did last night was we watched his top 10 last year. We watched the worst 10 this year.
Okay.
So we watched the ones he ranked at the bottom. And I have to say, the one that was ranked as number 10, this time we laughed our heads off. And he admitted, he's like, I may have been wrong about this one. And maybe our sensibility has changed because we've been over the last couple of years, we've been watching through The Simpsons. We're up to season 18 now. And I had never seen anything past the Golden Age. And when
does the Golden Age officially end?
The Golden Age, a lot of people say it ends season 10. I think you could arguably, you know, get away with saying it really ended at season 8. You know,
we're currently in season 12.
Oh, you're in you're in some of the worst area.
We just recently saw a really good episode, though. It was one where the
Trilogy of Error. Was it Trilogy of Error? Did you get to that one yet?
I can't remember. Maybe it was the one where there's a school bully, and Lisa discovers what makes bullies attracted to like geeks.
Oh,
and it's like something that has to do with like the smell of the geek of the nerd. And Lisa discovers it. It was actually a really good episode, but it was one of the best episodes in the midst of not very good episodes. So,
okay, the number one segment that he picked,
ever.
Well, I'll go through is okay. Number 5 was Clown Without Pity. That's where okay. Oh yeah, that was the evil Krusty Doll one, legendary, right?
Oh, okay.
Number 4, the Shinning.
Yeah.
Number 3, Dial Z for Zombies.
No beer, and no food make Homer go crazy, right?
Don't mind if I do. Let's see. Okay, so Dial Z for Zombies. That was that's the one isn't that the one where Homer killed the zombie Flanders?
Okay, yeah.
Hey, Simpson, I'm feeling a mite peckish. Mind if I chew your ear?
Dad, you killed the zombie Flanders.
He was a zombie?
Number 2, Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace. You remember that one? That was the parody of Nightmare on Elm Street with the groundskeeper Willie.
Yes, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
and his number 1 was Time and Punishment. That's the one where Homer was fixing the toaster and it starts time traveling.
Oh yes, okay, yeah.
So these are all great. I mean, they're all classics. You could almost argue that any of them is a contender for number 1. They're all.
Isn't there a Treehouse one where Kang and the other alien guy take over and become like president?
That's where they're the one of them took on the form of Bill Clinton and the other took on the form of Bob Dole.
Yeah,
that was great. Yeah,
that's probably my favorite one. That's probably my favorite.
America, take a good look at your beloved candidates. They're nothing but hideous space reptiles. It's true. We are aliens. But what are you going to do about it? It's a two-party system. You have to vote for one of us.
You're right. This is a two-party system.
Well, I believe I'll vote for a third-party candidate.
Go ahead. Throw your vote away.
Just to wrap up here, I guess I wanted to mention my viewing of The Thing. And it is interesting how so many films, when you really break it down, the premise is always really simple. There's something out to get us, and how are we going to stop it or be killed by it, right? And what I like about The Thing, I mean, if you think about it, what I'm trying to say is The Thing isn't really all that different than Chucky. It's kind of the same movie. It's you're being chased by the monster, and people have to figure out how to stop it.
Its origin, alien. Location, Antarctica. Age, unknown. Intent, survival. Destination, man. John Carpenter's The Thing, the ultimate in alien terror. Rated R. Starts Friday at a theater near you. Check newspapers for local listings.
And you know what? Now that you bring this up, I should mention, I say I haven't really watched a lot of horror movies or whatever in the last few years or whatever, but I did watch The Thing. And the thing about The Thing is, it is in the horror
What
genre,
is the
right?
thing about The Thing?
But
Tell
you
me,
know, the
what's
thing
your
about
thing?
the thing about The Thing is that this thing is just a thing, and it is it is in the horror genre, right? But this is one of those movies that for years I have just heard so many people say this is a great film. Like, this is like, if we're talking about horror movies, this is like one of the greatest horror movies ever made. So when I started reading about it, shocked me kind of to find out that like it was almost universally hated by the critics.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. It's kind of strange. I don't understand that.
Like, it aged well. I guess maybe it was ahead of its time. I don't know, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really, really good movie.
I really enjoyed it too. I like some of the when a premise puts people into a pressure cooker, and this movie did that because they're in Antarctica, and so there's nowhere to go. Everything is limited because you can only spend so much time out in the cold. And you have to be really careful of resources, fuel and food and temperature.
Yeah.
And so there's just all these pressures on them.
Everything about that movie feels stressful. I mean, you just describing it right now is stressful.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I walked in because I had to do something, and so I missed like the first 10 minutes. And
that was the best part of the movie.
Was it?
I don't remember the first 10 minutes. I think there was something with a helicopter or something.
Well, yes, it was. There was these Finnish scientists, and they were trying to they were trying to destroy the thing, and so I missed all that, and I basically saw one of those scientists die, and then there was a dog, and my wife and my son, they kind of didn't say anything, but I love huskies, and there was this husky dog, and I was like, oh, husky, and they kind of look at me like, okay. Well, it turned out the thing was in the husky, and I didn't know it because I was like sitting there thinking, that's a cute, I love this cute dog, but it's like, no, it's in there, And,
because the thing takes on the form of all these different beings, whether it's an animal or human. So you never really know who the thing is in the movie. Yeah, and so that's where that tension comes from, is as the men and this would be one of the faults of the movie. There's only men in the movie, characters, but as they start to get knocked off one by one, they start turning on each other. Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the analyses that I read about the film is that it was intentionally all men, because essentially the movie was from what some critics have read, is an indictment on men and the inability of many men to I'm trying to remember. I read this morning. It was essentially like the inability to empathize and to be maybe more prone to paranoia. And it was basically what I read. This analysis was that this was a movie more about men than it was about the thing.
Okay, there you go.
I wish I could say that more eloquently, but I barely remember what I read.
No, I could definitely see that. And this is where, as a horror film, The Thing is a little bit different than Chucky. You can start to assess it with how in particular men treat each other.
It is. I mean, it is way less stupid than Chucky.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I mean,
it is. It is. It is. So maybe we could talk about that movie as being about the utter fear of the unknown.
Yeah, because it is a movie about paranoia.
Paranoia and how that causes us to turn on each other in the midst of that. And I will say, where a movie like Jaws, to talk about another monster movie that uses the monster sparingly.
Yeah.
In The Thing, they definitely build up to the monster, but once they show you the monster, I was like watching in awe and shock. I was like, oh, they're really doing this with the puppetry. I mean, they went for it. It's probably the most complex puppetry I've ever seen in a film, in terms of like all the different movements and the elaborate nature of the designs. Because there's several designs. There's kind of like a dog design and there's a human design, and just like utterly disturbing imagery.
Everything about the film is impressive. The cinematography is beautiful. Just the way it's shot, you can feel the isolation of where they're at, and you really do feel the stress of being in this remote, isolated, desolate, frozen area where there's just nothing you can do. All the options are gone. You really feel that, and it comes through. But we're talking about practical effects. The practical effects are amazing.
They're amazing, yeah.
I mean, they really are. This is a movie again where, you just watch this and you go, wow. On some level, it feels like we've lost something in modern filmmaking, and that they were doing things back then that are really truly mind blowing.
It was, yeah. I would recommend, if you can stomach it, The Thing is worth watching just to observe the achievement of what they do. John Carpenter, him and his team.
There was like an autopsy or something too, wasn't there?
Yeah,
of the thing. It was disturbing.
Yeah, I was like, oh my goodness, they're reaching their hand in there right now. Yes, they are.
It was really gross.
Oh, and hey, it's worth noting. The man that was doing it was Wilford Brimley, and this was like his first major mainstream movie role. I had no idea, and I was telling my kids, I was like, "Did you know he was 47 years old when he started in this movie? He looked 67. I kid you not."
They smoked a lot back then, Chris.
Yes, they did.
Just so much smoking.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, I'm enamored by Wilford. Anytime he shows up, that guy has presence. So, anyway, this was good, fun conversation, Joe. Obviously, we have more educating to do as the years go on, but this was a fun year. I feel like we did well. We have really introduced ourselves to some classics.
We're branching out, Chris. We are, we're trying new things. We're growing as we approach our 50s ever so slowly. And right. I hope that by the time that I am 50, I will have seen every slasher movie that I can possibly fit in one night a year over the next.
Well, there are like 15 more Chuckies that you can go see.
I think Mark Hamill, was the voice of Chucky in the last one.
Eventually, yeah. In the reboots, Mark Hamill. That's pretty amazing. And I maybe I'm gonna watch some more slasher films, but as of today, I probably need to go purge my house of the demons. Okay.
Watch Toy Story of Terror. I'm telling you.
Maybe that's how I'll do it. All right. Or Christmas is coming. Maybe I just need to watch A Wonderful Life, and then I'll feel like my house has been made whole again.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for listening. It's been fun. If you find us on Twitter or X, or if you want to look us up with our email address, let us know. Have you watched any slasher films this season? Any horror films? Or what would be next on your list that you wanted to watch? And we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. It's been good to be with you. We'll see you next time on Nostalgic Future.
Thanks for listening to the Nostalgic Future Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line at nostalgicfuturepodcast@gmail.com. We may just read your letter on an upcoming show. Follow us on social media, Nostalgic Future Podcast on Facebook and @PastFuturePod on Twitter. Please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review to help support what we do. Until next time, remember, the past is the only way forward.
I'm at the pawn shop to sell my Good Guys doll that was a prop in the movie Child's Play. If I'm able to sell the doll, I'm gonna give back the money to my friend so that way he can put that money into a college fund for his girls.
I remember when I was a kid being scared as hell of this movie when I saw it.
A lot of nightmares for a lot of kids.
Child's Play. It was a typical 80s slasher horror movie.
Yeah.
It was a serial killer that got killed in a toy store, and he was somehow transformed into one of these good guy dolls.
Yeah, they did some seance and put his essence into the doll that turns into Chucky.
Yeah.
And it just dies a million different ways and just keeps coming on back. It's a classic.
And then there was Child's Play 2, 3, Bride of Chucky.
Bride of Chucky.
And they definitely have a cult following. When you watch them now, they're almost comical, but when I was a kid, it was absolutely terrifying.
It wasn't like that scary. It was a doll. He's such a nerd.